Thank you very much for putting this on. Also, a big shout out. There's a team of people that are making this happen, and just nothing but thanks for everybody in the background that helps this work and work very well. So this is a weird presentation. I guess any presentation that has a title of diuretic goats, or a part of the title that has diuretic goats, is going to be a little weird. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's going to be a strange ride, especially at the end. And as I was talking in the green room, I usually get a little bit nervous whenever I talk about things that aren't necessarily technical. So we're going to start technical and work into non-technical. So I want to talk about cyber deception. I fundamentally believe that cyber deception is absolutely essential for any security program whatsoever. If you run across people that are like, well, you should do everything else right first before you do cyber deception, those people are wrong. And the reason why is because you will never get to the point where absolutely everything is working absolutely the way that it should in your organization. So that's basically a neat way of saying, we're never going to implement cyber deception ever. And the reason why cyber deception is more important now than it's ever been is because a lot of the different defensive architectures that organizations have are very consistent. You're seeing the same endpoint vendors, you're seeing the same firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, and it's relatively easy for a defender to mimic those defenses and then be able to bypass those defenses. Like, seriously, do you think the Russians don't have the ability to bypass Cylance or CrowdStrike or Sentinel-1? Absolutely they do. So what we can do is we can add in a little bit of randomization and a little bit of risk on behalf of the attackers and what they're doing. And one of the best organizations out there whenever it comes to cyber deception is Haroon's company, Thinkest. And they have this amazing website, which we're probably going to end up bringing down by having everyone go to it at the same time. They have this website called Canary Tokens. Now, what Canary Tokens does is it allows you to create a number of different artifacts that if they're interacted with, they call back. So you can create Word documents, you can create PDFs, you can create S3 buckets, you can do all kinds of things. Now, these are really powerful and they're super simple to use, which brings me to another point when we're talking about cyber deception. It's not hard to do. That's one of the things that I'm hoping to get out of this very, very quickly is you can implement this without standing up a bunch of Windows Server 2003 honeypots and then watching them. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about some very easy components that you can put in place. And there's a lot of really cool features built into this. I don't have time to go into all of them, but it's just amazing. Another thing that you can look at is ADHD, the Active Defense Harbinger Distribution. Now, this is a DARPA-funded project that we worked on at Black Hills Information Security with Secure Ideas, Kevin Johnson and his team. And the idea was to bring together all of these different cyber deception technologies into one place. Now, right now, the ADHD project is currently in flux. We have one VM, which is a Linux-based VM that has all the tools installed on it. That's absolutely fantastic. It's going to be updated here very shortly. So you can play with it, and that's great. The other VM that we have is the VM that we use in my Pay What You Can classes, which is a Windows VM running Windows subsystem for Linux and all the tools built into it. But for right now, if you want to get started, you can actually go to blackhillsinfosec.com/projects/ADHD, download and run the VM there as well. So let's go through some of the stuff that Thinkest provides whenever we're looking at Canary Tokens. This is really cool and it's super easy, and it's so easy, I don't know why everybody isn't doing it. Like, this should be something that is built into every single authentication portal that exists. What it does is you take this little bit of JavaScript and you embed it on your website where you have a user ID and a password field. Now, as a pen tester, as a malicious attacker, as anybody that's doing offensive operations knows, you're going to clone that, right? So an attacker will sit down, they're going to clone that authentication portal. And the reason why they're going to do that is because they're trying to create a legitimate looking website in order to capture credentials. So if you're looking at like Evil Nginx or Evil Jinx, if you're looking at a bunch of other tools that allow you to clone websites, Social Engineering Toolkit has that capability, or just some Python libraries that you can do your own cloning of a website, what's going to happen is as soon as that website is cloned, it's going to pull this JavaScript and it's going to check and see if the document domain is not your domain. And the example here is it's thinkest.com. And if it's not, then it's going to reach back and it's going to try to pull an image file. Now, when it does that, then you're going to be able to pinpoint where that attacker actually is. Now, we're going to talk about geolocation based on IP address here in just a couple of seconds. It's not the best geolocation that you can work with. It actually works pretty well for our purposes of what we're going to be doing over the next few slides of this presentation. But it's really easy. Also, you can take the code associated with Canary tokens and you can build your own Canary token server. So it isn't always going back to canarytokens.com. You can set up your own domain. So you can set up a domain that's close to your domain, or you can set up a domain that's complete gibberish that looks like an advertising domain. So if the attacker's system reaches back to like e23b2.org, they're gonna be like, well, that just looks like an ad server or something like that. Once again, kind of flipping the psychology on the attackers a little bit. Now, the question is, does this work? Well, yeah, it does. So we actually utilize this in a number of different parts outside of Black Hills information security. And now everyone's going to be looking for them. Please don't, but yes, they're out there. And the goal of doing this is, once again, to try to identify spear phishing campaigns before a single email is sent in. So if somebody clones one of our websites, we can dynamically block that particular domain that the attacker may be standing up, or we can just monitor the situation a little bit closer, which is what we tend to do. And it works. So in this particular situation, this is our Canary token server. This is a while back, right before the last DerbyCon. And this is just one snapshot in time. And these were active attacks against Black Hills information security and people that were actively trying to clone our website in order to attempt a spear phishing campaign against us. Once again, this works. We're always being attacked, and this allows us to get in front of the attack a little bit. Now, I'm not going to go into a crazy rant on threat intel feeds, but by and large, this is really solid threat intel. It's not threat intel about a website that was used to attack another organization a week or a month or a year ago. It's basically threat intelligence of what the attacker is doing against your organization right now. Real-time threat intelligence that's highly specific to you. So if you're into threat intelligence and that's your jam, there's different ways, right? TTPs, goals, and objectives are amazing. IOCs are kind of garbage, right? Unless you're dealing with general botnets. What you're always after is you're trying to get the most on the ground truthful information of what the attacker is doing right now. And cyber deception allows you to do that. Allows you to dynamically see, look, these are the IP addresses the attackers are currently using. We can start monitoring these IP addresses, or we can actually do some type of blocking or shunning of these IP addresses as well. Now, Word documents. I once had this idea of completely redoing green eggs and ham and doing it all for cyber deception. You know, would you run it from a share? Would you run it from a chair? Would you run it from Tor? If the FBI comes, should you open the door and kind of do it that way to get the point across? But Word documents are probably one of the most basic types of cyber deception and attribution that you can utilize. The idea is post-exploitation. An attacker breaks into your environment, and then they may use some utility that'll search through all the shares that are available to the specific user account that they have compromised, looking for specific documents. Documents with words like passwords or SCADA, ICS, HIPAA, whatever, social security numbers. You can create documents with keywords and put them on shares that an attacker is absolutely going to find through an automatic fashion. So they run this, they scan through the environment, they find the document, they open it. You could also put it up on your website, like help desk instructions or VPN instructions, or I don't know, server passwords.doc. That last one is a little bit out there, but you can basically have it be part of your web infrastructure that your general user population is never going to. Reference it in robots.txt, and attackers will actually go there as well. So there are some things to keep in mind. Once again, when you're dealing with this, the vast majority of Word docs, especially the ones that you use from Canary tokens, they're going to be triggering based on IP address. So a while ago, I had my brother who works at Black Hills Information Security. I sent him a doc, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And this was before DerbyCon, the last DerbyCon, once again, kind of feeling nostalgic because I don't know, just am. And I was like, Brian, you got to open this document. He's like, I'm not supposed to open this document. This is against BHIS policies. This looks weird. We shouldn't be doing live testing. I'm like, come on, Brian, open the document. So he opened the document. Now, I wanted to demonstrate what type of accuracy you could actually get with basic IP address. I mean, anybody who knows anything about geolocation by IP address knows it sucks, right? And if I was going to try to get geolocation for some of my networks, it's going to put me in Kansas. Or if you're downtown Louisville, it's going to put it somewhere in Louisville, Kentucky or Kentucky. That's really horrible geolocation, not that valid. And if you believe that, you'd be right. So we were at the hotel all the way downtown Louisville, and it put us a pin way far away from where we actually were. Once again, there is value in this, right? We know the attackers are in Russia. We know the attackers are in China. We know the attackers are in Kentucky, right? There's some value there, but it ain't great value. Well, if you back up and you think about how IP addresses work in general, at home, your computer system, whenever it joins a wireless network, is going to get assigned an IP address via DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. And your ISP isn't all that different. So imagine the ISP has this great big pool of IP addresses, and they're handing them out dynamically, and things are changing over time. Would you bother to geolocate those IP addresses? No, probably not. Even though they do and they can, you generally need a warrant, source, destination, date, timestamp, source port in order to actually get the real location, but that's a whole nother conversation for a different day. So those IP addresses tend to be very dynamic, and they just put them all in the exact same location. However, if you're looking at how IP addresses work, the end IP addresses are going to be dynamic. The routing IP addresses tend not to be. So if you can trace route to an IP address, go to the second to last hop, back up, and go to the edge router, well, that edge router tends to be far more accurate. And in this particular situation, it had us a block away because we were staying at the Hyatt Regency, a block and a half. Now that's far more accurate geolocation on the attacker. This is cool, right? And once again, this serves as a great tripwire. If it's on the inside of your environment, this is something that a general user should not be mucking around with. And if they do, you can start investigating as though the account is compromised. That's pretty neat. Now, we can do that with canary tokens. But the problem is canary tokens tends to only work really well with Word. What if we had other like document readers? Well, you can use Word web bugs. And this is actually built in to ADHD. This is a tool that was created by Ethan Rovish. And what this tool does is it actually puts in a cascading style sheet and an image source tag inside of the document. The cool thing about this is it works on AviWord, LibreOffice Writer, Microsoft Word for Mac, Microsoft Word for Windows, Apple Text Edit, some versions of Apple Text Edit. It's far more effective as far as what it actually pulls up, which is pretty cool. The other thing I would encourage all of you to do, you can sprinkle these documents liberally throughout your own environment. Once again, no great risk. We aren't hacking back. We aren't doing anything that requires a seismic change to our infrastructure. So far, it's no big whoop. Stand up the server, sprinkle up some documents, sit back and wait for the alerts to come in. The other thing you can do is if you go back to the MITRE attack technique matrix, there's a lot of techniques there. One of the things the MITRE attack technique matrix doesn't do as well as I would like it to do is frequency. How often are certain attack techniques utilized versus others? So one of the attack techniques that attackers use all the time is password spraying. Post-exploitation, running net user space / domain, dumping all of the users from the environment, and then doing a password spray with PowerShell or a for loop from the command line to try each one of those user IDs indiscriminately with a given password. Let's say a password of winter 2022 or PancakesCon 2022, because some people might have that for their password as well. So they'll try to use that single password against all of these user accounts. Well, something you can do next Monday or Tuesday, if Monday is a holiday for you, is you can set up an account. I use an example of admin administrator. You don't have to do that. You can name it anything. Just create an account. So you're going to create an account, give it a really long password, log into the account. If you don't log into the account, it's going to set the last login time as January 1st, 1601, which is epoch time for Active Directory authentication. And has something to do with the Gregorian calendar, and we aren't going to get into that. But at any rate, it's a 0 time, nothing in it, and that goes back to epoch time. So log into it so it gets rid of that epoch time because that's a dead giveaway. that this is a honeypot account or account that's never been logged into. So log in, give it a really long password, set its logon hours to 0. It's a way of disabling account without actually disabling the account, because some of the attacker tools will go through and identify disabled accounts and won't even try authenticating. We want the attacker to authenticate or at least attempt to. So now you set up a rule in your SIM that if somebody tries to authenticate, alert immediately. Once again, threat intelligence about what's happening in your environment right now. Also, curb roasting. You could do this with service accounts as well. We have a number of tools that we need to update at Black Hills Information Security, and this is one called the Cred Defense Toolkit, written by a number of BHIS employees. We do need to update, but it allows you to create fake curb roastable accounts. I guess they are service accounts, not really fake, but whenever there's an attempt to access them, it'll generate an alert. Once again, post-exploitation. Any attacker worth their salt is going to do a password spray, and they're going to attempt to do curb roasting. They may try to do it low and slow. It doesn't matter. You're still going to be able to detect them. Easy peasy. Set this up. Run it in your environment, please. It's super simple. Doesn't require a lot of overhead. And yeah, you can probably get it done in the next couple of days. And we love putting this in our reports at Black Hills Information Security. Effective use of traps. Multiple hosts in this environment were installed as traps. Activities conducted reveals that these were vulnerable to multiple insecurities. I love it. And one of my favorite quotes is, I love it when testers cry, I collect their tears. It makes the best wine. The other tool that we have is one called Honey Badger. This was originally created by Tim Tomes, and we forked it. Bradley has forked it recently. And this generates a whole bunch of VB that whenever the document, usually an Excel spreadsheet, which can also do a Word document, is fired, it's going to run a PowerShell command, PowerShell netsh WLAN show networks mode BSSID. And it's going to find the MAC addresses, not MAC address, the BSSIDs, which is the MAC address of a whole bunch of wireless networks. And then it's going to submit that up to Google. And then Google is going to send you the latitude and longitude, usually within like 20 meters of where that system is. Now, there's no obfuscation in this. You're going to have to come up with some level of obfuscation to make this get by some endpoint protection products, but the concept works really well. An attacker pulls down a spreadsheet, they open it, they expect macros because there's macros in Excel spreadsheets all the time, and bang, you've got geolocation very, very close to where the attacker is. Just compile it and run it, and you're ready to go. This is the same thing running, and it put us at the Marriott within 77 meters, which is pretty darn close. So my goal of all of this is to try to get you all familiar with cyber deception and not be afraid of it. Don't look at it as some type of, ooh, that might be illegal or we might get arrested. Stop. That's not the way to think. That's not the way to live. The other way that people say is, we don't want to anger the attackers. Yes, we do. We don't want to be in a situation in computer security where we're so bad at being a victim that we're like, let's not anger them so they don't hurt us more. They don't care. They're still going to come after you as hard as they possibly can. Let's put some risk back on them. I would like to give you the link where you can pull down Honey Badger. That's at GitHub. And this is Bradley's GitHub repository. And it's also built into ADHD as well. Finally, I would like to offer you all to come to my training next week. It's pay what you can. So if you can pay, awesome. If you can't, awesome. I don't care. Just trying to get cyber deception out there as much as I possibly can to the community. Like I said, we'll be starting it up next week. Jump on. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's 2 days of cyber deception spread over 4 days. So 4 days or 4 hour, 4 hour, 4 hour, 4 hour. So you get time to actually digest what we're talking about. All right, let's move on and let's talk about cows, dog collars, and hail. All right, so this particular picture, I want to talk a little bit about some farm fails, and there's a reason for all of this, and I'll get to that at the end. That wonderful baby calf that you see there, that particular calf was born in the summertime, actually early spring. And mama is proud and sitting over the baby calf, which is great. Well, this picture was taken because my wife and I were running around trying to find that baby calf. And we were having a hard time finding that baby calf. And the reason why we were trying to find that baby calf is because a massive hailstorm was rolling through. And we wanted to go get the baby calf and mama under shelter before the hailstorm came through. And so I was going to go find this calf with my wife, found it, took a picture, sent it to her, told her where I was at. She came down, I actually almost stepped on the baby cow. Whenever a calf is born, if they drop down and they curl up into a ball, they're actually really hard to see. And that's what he was doing. So what do you do if you have a baby calf that has decided just to lay there and not move around? It's, again, a very, very young calf. I think within 24 hours old. So I did what anybody would do. I decided that I was going to put a dog collar on the calf with a leash and try to get the baby calf to get up and like go with us to safety from the massive thunderstorm that's coming over the ridge, you know, thunder and lightning and all this stuff. So I put the collar on the calf, which once again, totally weird. I know that now. People think it's dumb. They're right. And this baby calf would not get up. This baby calf immediately started like just screaming bloody murder as soon as I tried to pull on him. And all of a sudden, mama and the entire herd just comes like barreling down. Now, as soon as they start barreling down, the thunderstorm hits and it starts raining and hail, monster hail just starts coming out and is pelting my wife and I. And we're like, we've got to get this baby calf to safety. So I pick up the baby calf and I start walking with this baby calf, legs straight down, holding him like this. And I'm walking with this baby calf. The cows are coming up to me and they're not having any of it. The baby calf is freaking out because it's wearing a dog collar with flowers on it. Totally not its style. It's freaking out. And my wife and I turn around in the middle of this hairstorm and start running from this herd of cows. And we're running towards the fence. And I'm thinking, I've got this baby calf. And I'm like, I got to get the baby calf to safety. So finally, I just like set the baby calf down. Eric and I jump over the fence to safety. And like the whole herd of cows are staring right at the edge of the fence, like, come over on this side. Yeah. Hailstorm goes through. My wife and I are sopped. We're freezing cold. We've got welts from hail all over us. And the baby calf just like gets up, goes to mama and just starts chilling out for the rest of the day. Then when my family members came and visited us and they saw this calf with this dog collar for like the next week, they were like, why the hell does your calf have a dog collar? That's really weird. So sure enough, that was embarrassing, right? For a long time until we got him in the chute and we got the dog collar off. So that was a good time. This particular baby calf, this baby calf has a name of Olaf. If you remember in the movie Frozen, you had Ella and you had Olaf, which was the snowman that's running around, you know. And for whatever reason, mom decided to drop this baby calf at -20. By the time that we got to this calf, he was outside. He was sitting in a bunch of feed, and we picked him up. And his hair, he was just born, so he's still wet. So he was crusty because he was frozen. And we moved him into the shop. Now he was still very, very, very new, and mom hadn't gotten protective of him yet. Now that usually takes a little while, a few hours, for the mom to get protective. Otherwise, they're like, dang, that's one big ugly turd, and they just move on. And then slowly it starts to sink in. This was a baby, and I need to take care of it. And this was a new mom. So we moved Boloff into the shop, and we turned on a whole bunch of diesel torpedo heaters, and mom was having none of it. Mom didn't want to go in. And once again, that was a hard night because we had to corral mom into the rough area where the calf was. We had to kind of shoo mom in so they were in the same area. Mom didn't want to go into the shop because it smelt strange. And we fought this constantly. Now, this, I don't think, did we end up trenching Boloff? I don't think we did we? Trenching. Yep, we had to trench him. So whenever you trench a bull or a baby calf, you drive a tube down their throat and you send milk replacement because they need food, especially whenever it's that cold. He needed to eat very, very, very quickly and get some nutrients. Otherwise, he was just going to freeze to death. Mind you, this is at night. So it's like really late. We got these bullet heaters. We're trenching this cow, and he made it. Now, if you see Boloff today, he had these big, beautiful ears when he was born. You can kind of see it a little bit on the right-hand side. You can see where it's dark. He was getting frostbite. He actually lost about half his ears because he kind of froze before we were able to get to him. But that's a positive story. You know, we were able to save the baby cow. And there's going to be people that are vegetarians. They're like, how can you stand to eat an animal that you did something like this with? And I'm not going to give you a clean answer. I grew up around ranching. It's harder than hell on me anytime we process these cows, because in a lot of ways, these cows become family. Some of them just become ornery and they start trying to kill me. Those ones are easier. But this is, yeah, it's tough. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to try to be like, well, it's because they're tasty. It's harder and harder as the time goes on. Goats and diarrhea. So this is Oreo cookie ice cream, I think was the name of this goat. It was Oreo, might have been just Oreo, I'm not sure. But Landon, my son, who you can kind of see in the background, named these baby goats that we got. And this particular baby goat ended up getting very, very, very sick. And we, the night before we took him into the vet, we let him sleep inside, and he was not moving. So we put him in kind of a nest with a whole bunch of straw inside of the house where it was warm. Once again, it was cold. Well, no, it was summertime when this one happened. And he decided once he got in the house and he got warmed up, he's like, I'm going to start walking around. And he started walking around and was still very, very, very ill. So we took him into the vet, and the vet gave him some antibiotics, which we found out after the fact was the wrong thing to do, mainly because what the antibiotic does is it gives the goat like horrible diarrhea. So this particular goat, we had him bundled up in the back of a pickup truck, in the back seat, not the backpack, but the back seat of a pickup truck, in a big old blanket. We took him from the vet, put him in the back of the truck, and he just started just pooping everywhere. And it wasn't like a nice, like solid poop. You're like, golly gee, I'll throw that out the window. No, it was like runny. And it's in the truck and it smells bad. We're stopping at gas stations and we're getting all of these different like glass wipes to try to clean it up, and poops again. It's horrible, right? And then we ended up getting home, and my wife went shopping at Walmart. She's like, well, I'm going to go shopping at Walmart and get some groceries and stuff. So I had this goat with my youngest son, and brought him into the foyer. Actually, I had him out on the porch because he was all poopy. And I told my youngest son, hey, don't bring him into the house. We have to clean him up. So I leave to go get some cleaning supplies. I come into the front porch, and there's this lagoon of diarrhea. And what had happened was my youngest son decided that he was going to bring the goat in and then get some warm water and dump it on the goat's butt to clean his butt inside on our entryway. Now we have stone in our entryway, so it wasn't like carpet or hardwood floors, but it's just like this huge pool of like just diarrhea water, like everywhere. And I go in and I'm like, Landon, what did you do? And he's like, I was just trying to clean it up. And he's got this bucket and it poops everywhere. At this point, Oreo decides to like get up and like start walking around. Now he has a leash on, right? So he's walking around, and we're trying to like, clean up the mess while this goat's walking around. The other goat that was a pair to this one, a white one, which I think was Vanilla, or Nella as we called it, I decided, hey, my friend's home. I'm going to go hang out too. So he comes in and starts walking around through the diarrhea. And then my two dogs, and I'm going to show you on the next slide, are like, it's a party. And I'm running around the house and I'm trying to like get these dogs and these goats, and they're like tracking this diuretic water all over the house. And I'm running around and I'm trying to get them all taken care of. Finally, the goats get outside. I get the dogs outside, because as soon as I start doing this, the dogs and the goats are like, we're playing tag. And they're like running around, hiding from us. And we get them all out, and the house is just like crap everywhere. And I spend like the next hour like cleaning it up and bleach and vinegar, and I just trying to get the smell of diarrhea out of the house. And it's absolutely miserable. And of course, they're all outside. And they're like, hey, can we come back in? That was fun. So just like probably one of the biggest messes I've ever encountered in my life. Not the biggest. This was right up there. This was top 5 for sure. And after I get it all kind of cleaned up, and I kept cleaning, and I kept cleaning, and I kept cleaning, and my wife shows up with the groceries, and like, did I miss anything? And I'm like, I can't get the smell of diarrhea out of the house. I've tried, and I don't know where it's at. And she like comes in and she's like smells. She goes, I'm pretty sure that's you. And I realized at that point I was probably covered in it. So I had to shower and get everything cleaned up. So fun story. It's actually not. The goat passed away that night. And that's not the only animal we've lost. I've lost a couple of calves. I have lost multiple piglets. I've lost chickens. I know chicken's kind of a dumb animal. There's a couple of chickens that I've gotten close to, my family's gotten close to over the years. And, whenever you're around farmers and ranchers, they're like, oh, it's just the way it is. You just, kind of move on. It still hurts, right? Like these animals become part of the family. And these cute little baby goats were definitely part of the family. And now we have 2 other goats that have long lived, and they're doing really, really, really well. But it's hard, right? It's very hard. And this picture is a hard one for me too. That's Muffin and Lily, 2 of the best dogs we ever had. I would say the best dogs that we've ever had. We currently have not a puppy. He's about 1.5 years old. His name's Tahoe, and he's doing really, really good. But even him, he's a cow dog, and he got kicked by a cow, and we thought he was dead. Lily got bone cancer when she was about 2 or 3, and we had to put her down. And Muffin was an older dog and was up underneath the vehicle, and the vehicle ran her over. And the reason why I'm saying this is these stories of fails are fun. Anytime someone can share that type of visceral experience of failure and what happens, these are kind of fun stories, but they kind of cut. And every time somebody talks about a manager that was a horrible manager, we joke about it now, but it hurts at the time. When you have these amazing dogs on the farm, and you lose them both within like 48 hours of each other, or you have bulls that you try to nurse back to health, and they end up crawling underneath a bale feeder and freezing to death, or like I said, piglets that are born, and for whatever reason, they were born on one side of the pig pen far away from the straw, and they ended up dying because mom didn't move them over or didn't have them. She was a new mother. So you deal with this all the time, and you're constantly dealing with these setbacks, like constantly. It's unending. And there's things I didn't even talk about. Like, I didn't talk about a UTV accident that almost killed my son. I didn't talk about slipping off the top of a skid steer while putting up a roof and cracking some ribs, multiple different trips to the ER for stitches, cows on the run. Like, drones are awesome for cows that disappear, but trying to corral cows, and my wife running into a hornet's nest, trying to get the cows back. This is a picture of a forest fire that happened a year ago in December, that we were out all night digging up trenches to stop the fire, clearing out undergrowth, because we thought for sure our entire place was going to be hit as soon as that fire got into the lower part where the wind was coming up at 55, 60 miles an hour. It was going to take us out. Chicken coops burning down in the middle of winter. Tons of gardening fails. I always joke, if you open up a book and it says gardening in the Black Hills, it's just one word, don't. But there's tons of fails associated with that. Castrating pigs, not even going to talk about that. Tons of equipment failures and working on equipment, and frozen fuel lines, water in the fuel lines, and just trying to deal with all of that. More sad dog stories. Some are too raw, I can't even talk about. Construction fails, trying to build something and working with construction companies, and it takes 2-3 years. And this is for me, we have a small farm. And for me, growing up around ranching communities, this was normal. This is just the way it was. You always were dealing with things like this, like a herd of cows going out on the water in a feed, in a stock dam, and they all break through the ice and they all freeze to death and die. This is what it's like. And there's questions, and they're valid questions, about why the hell do you do this? Honestly, I can't imagine living my life any other way. It's tough, right? You're constantly fighting these things. And I think a lot of these farm fails can apply to computer security. And it's not that much of a stretch. I had a student last week. in my intro to security class. And I've never been so worried about a person in my life. He was constantly talking about self-harm. He constantly needed help, which was fine, and constantly put himself down as though it was his hobby to tear himself down. Eventually, he just stopped responding. I hope he's okay, but I feel for him. And over the years, teaching and working with lots and lots of people, you end up running across these people. And you may be one of those people as well. You may have to deal with that. So I want to give you some concepts if you're new to security, even if you're not new to security. I see people on Twitter that are hurting. I see people on Twitter that are bleak and they put themselves down. The first thing I want you to understand is failure is part of the system. You see InfoSec thought leaders or InfoSec rock stars, you see these people up on talks and they do all of these amazing things. And if you really sit down and talk with them and have a dinner or a beer or a root beer with them, there's a ton of failure that goes into that. To that one presentation that you saw that just blew your socks off, there's a tremendous amount of failure that goes into that point. And we don't talk about it, and we should. We really need to be talking about what our failures are and how we can do better. I want you also to focus on the good things. I think especially in these days and age, it's really easy to get so caught up in all the negativity. I don't want to say that things aren't bad because there's things that suck, right? I don't want to say that things aren't going to be, that they could be a whole lot worse. But what I am going to say is that there are good things. There are great people. Leslie in this entire con is one of those shining examples. I ask you to focus on the good things. Focus on the positive people. You need to let the bad things go. Don't let the bad things define you. That's not a good way to define yourself. And I see this all the time. You know, we have multiple deaths. We have multiple ER visits. Are you dealing with trolls online? Don't let them define you. And I suck at this too. When somebody comes at me, I want to prove them wrong on the internet. I want to beat them up on Twitter and embarrass them for all to see. Stop. We need to stop feeding the trolls. And I get caught up in it too, where someone says something really horrible, maybe racist, misogynistic, or horrible, and everybody has to pile on to get that one dig in on this person. How about we let it go and we all unilaterally block those people? Because they don't get that and be like, well, golly gee, I learned my lesson. Some of them enjoy it. That's what they like. A-hole bosses. You're in a great industry. Find another job if you can, right? Other things people say, things you think people say. Let it go. And I know this is hard, right? This is not, I don't want to be flippant and say that this is easy because this crap eats me at night too, but you have to let the bad go. Because like I mentioned in the farm fails, sometimes whenever you're dealing with this stuff, it can overwhelm you and you got to focus on the positive. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep trying. And you see this like farming in social media and in the movies. I think it's funny whenever you see people start a farm in the movies, it's just like, all of a sudden they change into jean jackets and the next thing you know, they're producing tomatoes the size of your head, pumpkins the size of a small car. They've got cornrows that are amazing and it looks like it's super easy. And then you're trying to do this and you're failing at everything and everything is dying around you. Don't trust the movies. Social media, I have people say, oh, you know, I'm trying to start a farm. And if I'm on Facebook, I have all these people that are showing their amazing bounty and all these amazing things that they did. And I suck. It's funny. Social media is no different in the farming community than it is in the security community. Can't trust these things. I really want to ask, make being positive the focus of what you do. And I know that this is hard. I know that this is difficult. But sometimes, no matter how hard it is, maybe you have to fake it. You have to pretend to be positive. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And whether we're talking about farm fails or we're talking about information security fails, I would also ask that we're a little bit kinder to each other whenever we screw up. If you have a coworker who brings down an entire network segment because of a bonehead move with a scan, be understanding, be helpful, be a mentor, share your experience where you've done something like that, and then learn from the mistakes together. Because we suck at that in this industry, guys. It is constant that there's a mistake and we immediately, oh, well, ASOC, the intern, was a big idiot. I've done it. I did it for years. I'm old enough now where I can look back and say, that was probably not the right way to do things. So let's try to be positive. Let's try to help each other. Let's try to build each other up. Kind of my last thing here I want to drive home too is this industry is finally getting to the point where I think it's a very good industry, where we're exhibiting a lot of virtues of building each other up, supporting each other. Yeah, there's assholes, right? They're always going to be a-holes. Like, you can't look at it and say, well, we aren't in a good place because this person said something that I just stopped. It's much better than it was. It used to be we constantly ripped on each other. We constantly called each other noobs. We constantly try to find ways to build ourselves up so that we looked better, so we didn't look weak to other people. And I would ask, we need to keep it up. And it's not some haphazard mistake. There's been a number of us in this industry that have worked very, very hard to focus on the positive, to build people up, to constantly give back to the community, but it's only sustainable if we all work together. So please keep working together. And also, once again, a huge shout out to Leslie and the crew. What they're doing is amazing. And we need more of this. We need to be replicated. And if you want to do something like this, hit me up. We have a team of people that are happy to help people out, starting up cons, doing things online. We want to be that positive force for good in the industry. With that, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for having me. And I just looking forward to listening to it for the rest of the day, Leslie.
Thank you so much for being here. We have a couple questions since I've got like a minute. I've got like 2 questions at the top. All right. So the first one is legal concerns with cyber deception. Do you talk to your lawyers, etc.?
Nope, you don't need to. And let me explain why. I shouldn't say that. Lawyers hate it when I say that. Lawyers are like, you should talk to us all the time for everything. Whenever you're doing cyber deception in the form of accounts and you're dealing with documents that are on your systems, they are yours. As long as you aren't getting persistent like access to an attacker's computer system, you're more than likely going to be okay. And the main case for that is the case the judge Walter Rice ruled. It is one thing to track a stolen computer system down to get its IP address or geographic location. It is something entirely different to violate federal wiretapping laws to do so. So simply getting IP address or location information, probably okay. Don't get access to their files. Don't start going through their web history. Kind of set that up as a line and you're more than likely going to be okay.
Okay, super. Well, we're about out of time and I need to switch over to the next talk. I apologize, but there are a few more questions for you in the Slack. And a reminder to our audience, again, if you want to ask questions or interact with our speakers, the Track channels in Slack are the way to do it today as we're live. Again, our Slack is linked at the top of PancakesCon.com. And that's how you participate in villages as well as talking to the speakers. John, thank you so much for being here. We are so grateful.
Thank you so much. Talk to you all later.
Talk to you soon.